if you go back into the ancient world and you look at what they were saying about reality or what they were saying about how the world is structured, then you find a very, very common theme. And that is of a force which is inevitably, invariably described as a parasitic force, which is manipulating humanity from the realms of the unseen. Now, the realms of the unseen are virtually everything that exists in all reality, because this is why I said earlier, Sean, that we have to start understanding the nature of reality to understand the nature of this conspiracy. Because I'm looking into this room now, this newsroom of the People's Voice in London, and most people doing so would think that they were seeing everything there is in the space that I'm looking at. Not at all, not even nearly at all. What I'm looking at is a tiny, tiny range of frequency called by scientists visible light, which is so tiny it's almost laughable. As someone very rightly said, humans are basically blind in the sense of what they can see compared with what there is to see. So if we think of this this reality as like a television channel, like a holographic television channel, we're only seeing the frequency that that channel operates on. Mainstream science says, and I think they're underestimating it, that of that which exists as mass and matter in this universe that they can identify or think they can, the electromagnetic spectrum is 0.005% of what exists. Some people say it's higher, but not by much. The electromagnetic spectrum is not what we conceive, and yet that's what 0.005% they say of what exists in this universe. Visible light is only a fraction of the 0.005%, and that's all we can see. So we are operating on a particular frequency band, just like a radio station and a television station in the analog system. And therefore, that's all we can see. If you tune to, in the analog system, to a certain television station, that's what you get. You don't get all the others. You get that one because that is tuning you into its frequency. We, through these bodies, these decoding systems, as I call it, biological computers, we are decoding a certain frequency range of information, and thus we are perceiving that. But outside of that is an infinity of possibility, an infinity of other forms of life that take a very different form to us. And some of them are just energetic. They don't have a form. They're just awareness. And when you, again, look at these ancient writings, they talk about this parasitical force, and they talk about it in incredibly similar terms. For instance, in 1945, a sealed glass jar was found in Egypt. And when it was opened, they found that it was writings from a group of people called the Gnostics, the pre-Christian Gnostics. And the Gnostics were a people, it was actually really a belief system, who were involved in running the Great Library at Alexandria, which was this fantastic depository of ancient knowledge and ancient accounts, which was destroyed by the Roman Church. These writings, because they'd been in this glass jar sealed, they reckon they were probably go back to about 100 AD or something like that. They've not been tampered with. They've not had their what they say changed to fit the political desire of the authority of the day. And 1/5 of these writings are about a non-human, energetic, parasitical force that they call archons. When you read what these writings say, these Gnostic writings say about the archons, it is a mirror of what the Islamic belief system says. And in fact, it's not just Islamic, it's pre-Islamic. Islam picked it up, but this is pre-Islamic in terms of what I'm going to say. They talk about the jinn. And these are energetic entities which manipulate humanity from the unseen realms. outside of visible light and our ability to perceive them, but we can feel their influence. Down to the fact that the jinn was said to have been created from smokeless fire, and the archons were said by the Gnostics to have been created from luminous fire. This is how close it gets. Then you look at
energy state, basically.
Yeah. Then you look at what was said by a Central American shaman called Don Juan Matus in the Carlos Castaneda books from the 1960s and 1970s. I think it got Castaneda was even writing into the 1990s, and he describes a force, a parasitical manipulating force, which he called the flyers. When you look at what he said about the flyers, it's what the pre-Islamic and Islamic world say about the jinn. It's what the Gnostics said about the archons. And so you build this in the realm of the Zulus in South Africa. They talk about the Chitahuri, which they describe in similar terms. And what's interesting, Sean, this is a real key thing, Sean, you know, because these entities, which people describe today as experiencing in abductions and what have you, they didn't arrive today. They've been here all along through what we call known human history. So when humans were knocking rocks together, they were still here at a high level of awareness and a high level of potential, high compared with humans who are systematically kept in the dark. And all the way through history, you describe, this is not the only form, you know, people connect me to talking about reptilians. Reptilians is a major expression of this parasitical force in the form it takes. But it's not the only one. There's lots of others. And of course, dominating the abduction descriptions of people today in what we call the modern world are entities that take a reptilian form and entities that take what they call the greys, the classic grey alien form. Well, what's absolutely stunning is when you read the accounts found in this sealed glass jar in 1945 in Egypt, they say that the archons, this in their prime form, energetic force that takes form, they describe them as taking form most often as a reptilian form, and in a form that, to summarize, looks like a grey fetus. Mm-hmm. And it talks about the way these archons in their various forms and energetic form parasitically feed off human energy. It's their life force, and how they possess the human emotional and thought processes to impose a sense of reality, a sense of perception that wouldn't normally be there. And you know, again, we have to understand the nature of reality. What is this possession parasitical process? The body is a holographic projection of an energetic information field. The energetic information field on one level is what we call the auric field. It's an electromagnetic field, and it can be photographed and it can be technologically measured. Now, these parasitical entities are operating at that electromagnetic and beyond to the deeper realms of waveform. That's the level they're operating at. So what they're doing is not possessing the body or the brain. They are, in frequency terms, making a frequency electromagnetic connection with the auric field. And through that, they are feeding off that energy. They feed off low vibrational emotional energy. And thus, the more that society can be structured to create maximum fear, maximum anxiety, frustration, anger, depression, the more we, at the electromagnetic level, drop into the frequency range that is represented by those emotional states, i.e. the frequency ranges that these entities operate at. Thus, there can be a frequency connection, and there can be not only a parasiting, a vampiring of our energy field as their food source, which is what the ancients talked about, but also it can come the other way in terms of dictating our sense of reality. While we think we're thinking and feeling something that is of our own generation, actually it's coming from another force. And throughout, whether it's religion or whatever, there's this massive common theme, Sean, as we all know, throughout history, of this process of possession. And this is how it happens. When you open your heart, when you're in a state of love, when you're in a state of compassion, when you're in a state of integrity, your vibrational state rises to the frequency level that is represented by those states, and never the twain shall meet. You become unpossessable because you're not in the frequency range that they can access. It's like being on two different television stations or radio stations. So if we...
That's why, Dave, I want to leave it at that, because that's exactly, I think, what the lip with your buzzsaw and with the people's voice is exactly trying to achieve. And I think that's a point that I really want to leave it at, which is to say that we're trying to raise that state above that level of fear and that trap that you described so well, that is a way of possession, a way of keeping people enslaved. It is through that lower frequency. And what we're going to be, what you'll be doing with people's voice, what we're trying to do now is exactly an elevation to that level of consciousness, which is knowledge, which is love, which empowers, right? And then we can, gradually, we'll be able to free mankind. That is our long-term goal.
Yeah, and that's why, Sean, that in the alternative arena, we have to open our minds to all possibility and not allow ourselves to be in our little box while pointing out that the population as in general are in their little box, because we have to have no boxes. Right. We are infinite awareness, infinite consciousness. It does not have a box. It is infinite. Yeah. Thus is unboxable. And if you are in a belief system that is dictating your sense of reality, and you are editing information received to make sure that your belief system survives, then I don't care where you are in the alternative arena. You might be more awake than the general population, but you're still in the box. And we've all got to get out of them and realize that, if we respond in the alternative media to what is happening with anger, with aggression, with fear, which often the former two are an expression of, then we are playing in the field of frequency that is actually manipulating reality, therefore can manipulate us. Yeah. We've got to go beyond it. And it's not New Age. It's not New Age nonsense and New Age, all that stuff. It's simple, basic metaphysics.
Right.